Hey, it's Abby from Facing Pages, and today we are talking about one of my favorite subjects, pens. They're all purple. One of the reasons is that my predecessor as editor-in-chief of Mid-American Review, Karen Crago, used purple, and I thought it was lucky to take up the charge and start using purple myself. One of the other reasons is that my editorial staff, usually they don't necessarily have purple handy, so it's a nice unusual color. It's easier for me to spot on an individual page, and then I can find my own marks easily if everyone else is using, blue or green or even red. I can find my marks where I'm saying, okay, yes, do this, and don't do this. So I have 5 pens here, and I have favorites. But I'll also show you what they actually do so you can kind of see why they're my favorites. So the first pen I'm testing out is the Stabilo. And the Stabilo is usually used for like coloring and so on, and line work and so on with comics and whatnot. I have a set of these in different colors, and they're great for a lot of purposes, but they do tend to bleed through a little bit more than I want for copy editing. So it's a nice shape, it feels good to the hand, but it's not quite right for my purposes with copy editing. Another one that I have that I frequently use because it's easy to find is the Sharpie marker, an ultra fine Sharpie marker. So as I said, these are easy to find. You can pick them up at grocery stores or art stores, chain stores like Michael's. I tend to get mine at Meijer if they have their display up, or at Michael's. And I like these pens because they are easy to use, but they also do bleed through. And that's not great. I need to be able to see if usually I like to print my copy editing on one side of the paper, but lately we've been doing it on 2 sides of the paper. So if a mark bleeds through, then it starts to obliterate what's on the other side, and that's no good. We can't have that. So my absolute favorite, though, is a related family, and that is the Sharpie pen. Oh, I love the Sharpie pen for copy editing. This is my favorite because it doesn't bleed through. It bleeds through hardly at all. The main flaw with this one is that the tip is so fine. Let's see if we can really get in there. It's so fine that I do break them, and I'll explain why in a few minutes. But it's great for marks. It hardly bleeds through, and it's quite comfortable. Unfortunately, hard to find. They do not sell this color individually. Like you can get black and blue individually. This one you have to get in a set. With some other colors, and I do get quite a few of these, like 3 or 4 sets per year, and then we can use the other pens for other things. But I wish I could just get a box of these, please, Sharpie, please. I just want a box of this specific pen. Fourth, we have something that I've been testing out recently, because I have a friend that uses these for line art and zines, and other types of comics and things like that. And that is the Micron 05. We're moving up to a bougie arts pen here. I like this pen actually quite a lot. I wasn't sure if I would for copy editing, but it's made to be very smooth and beautiful. And it also doesn't smear. I gave my niece and nephew one of these in purple for Christmas. I gave them each one, and they were having a good time testing out if it's smeared or not, and it doesn't, which is lovely. And I'll explain why that's important in a minute also. And then the last one I've been testing out is actually a pen that my friend favors, and that is the Papermate Flare. There she is. Fairly easy to find these in purple, which is nice. I like that. But it smears a little bit for me, but it also bleeds through. And I can't have that, as I mentioned earlier. So not a great choice for me personally. The reason is partly that I put a lot of pressure on when I write. Even when I'm copy editing, I put a lot of pressure on my pen. And I do that with most of my writing utensils. I do it with crayons. I break crayons all the time. I was that child. So sorry, everyone who had to be in groups with me and had broken crayons in your boxes. I apologize. But the other thing is as I mentioned, smearability. I write kind of weirdly. Normally, you're writing like this. kind of like that. And I can write like this after lots of like remedial teaching by teachers over the years. And you know, they would put the grips and things like that on my pens to try to make it easier to try to force me to write like this. I hate it. I hated the grips. They're the worst. I write a lot of times comfortably. I write like this. I'm a gripper. So I write with this like horrible grip. As a result, instead of having like a callus here, I have one here. This is my writing callus. And I do this especially when I'm not thinking about it, which is most of the time when I'm copy editing, I'm focusing on what I'm doing and not on my grip. So I grasp, I lean too hard, which is also why I break these. That's the reason. But because of that, then pens are more likely to bleed through. So I hear what you're saying. You're like, well, why don't you just use a pencil or a ballpoint? Gel pens are out because they smear usually too much. They just don't dry fast enough. And because of my grip, this part of my hand, especially this section, is always like smearing over what I've just written. And that is also why pencils don't work usually too well for me because of the smearing. I finally started using mechanical pencils as a kid, and game changer. I didn't get in trouble for not having sharp enough pencils anymore, even though it looked it looked like they weren't sharp, and a lot of times they were. It was just I had smeared. Ballpoint pens are fine. I just don't always like the way they feel in my hand. They pull a little bit more, and because of my grip, it tires out my hand faster. I don't love that as much. So I'm picky. I'm a little bit picky, but in order of goodness, these two, this one and then this one, I would use these without complaint. And that being said, I would still use any of these three if they were handy. I don't really care that much. But I do think I need to stop using the marker. There are other uses for this marker. I use it for my emphatic to-do lists and so on, and that's fine. These two, not too bad. These two, clear winners.